Tea News, the fabulous Yankee Tea News, along with my partner Eric here and the audience, the studio audience. That's right, Carol and Will. Okay, so here be the deal, folks. Wow, let me do the calls to action first. Check out our website, Yankee Tea News. Visit, like, subscribe. It's tell Tong time. I will simply say your tangled web. And we know what happens with tangled webs. Now don't we, Mr. Tong? Tina Peters, Pam Bondi has got to do better, okay? You have frankly made half-hearted efforts to federalize this case. We think of it as having originated in Colorado, but there are definitely issues that are federal in nature, and you have to, deputize some people and make some people federal witnesses in this case, and then get the ball rolling. So come on, Pam. I'm still putting that doghouse together for you. Okay. So I want you to keep that in mind. Meantime, the Hartford legislature, I hope we've got to do a special thing on them. The time is running out for this legislative session. And while there's talk that we might have turned them back on homeschooling, there's still a lot of dirty tricks that they can pull. So call that a warning. All right, so we got a little kerfuffle here as far as the theme is concerned. Anybody who will look at what we put online will see that it's about the auto pen scandal. But in fact, the thing I wanted to talk about is what I call the president who can see in the dark. So we'll get to the auto pen scandal. It's on the list. But the president who can see in the dark, that would be President Trump. I need to make the point that where he has come from, his years of work and experience, all of these learned from and grown by, has brought him and us to this moment, okay? And what we saw in the prior week when he was in the Mideast, where his ability to see into the dark was as incredibly prescient and on target as it could be. Now, that said, see, I'm going to belabor this just a little bit more here, so bear with me. See, I see a weird metaphor here. You may remember from the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship. There's the part where they're in that dark underground cavern and Gandalf confronts the demon. And there's a huge fight, and he looks at the demon and it says, with all the power that he has, you shall not pass, okay? And we know what happened to him as a result. Well, President Trump is standing there and telling the deep state, you shall not pass, all right? And what he has done in going to the Mideast is taking a path, all right, that they were always capable of going down, but never did, okay? I mean, if I use the term economic prosperity, that's not quite correct. But the point is that he sees what we do not see. And by having brought in so much investment, by having established so many working relationships, and I want to focus on Syria, he has truly done something that other people have failed to do. And I'm going to use the metaphor, it's because he can see in the dark. So that's the basic theme. The promo is up. Hopefully you will be able to read it at some point. Okay, Syria. Wow. I don't know how closely you folks have been following Syria, but it is going through them changes real fast. So here's my point. I've said it before. I think I said it last week. Syria is like the magic key, all right? Like in these adventure films, treasure hunting adventure films, and somebody has some weird contraption and they stick it into this slot, and then all of a sudden the wheels turn and the massive chamber of fortune opens up before you. Okay, well, that's Syria. Now, why would I say that? Because as a state or nation, Syria has, what, 23, 24 million people. I think when you add it all up, it's 6 to 7 million who either left or were displaced. So they're a hot mess. And there's very little in the way of resources. They don't have much in the way of oil. It's contested, in fact, up in that northeast corner. So economically, there's not much to turn to. But ladies and gentlemen, I have to say something. I hope you're listening. When you have a nation like this, where they've had a revolution, and this guy who is a jihadist now wants to be an international figure, when he has both Erdogan of Turkey and MBS of Saudi Arabia on the phone talking to each other about what they're going to do together on Syria, which they were talking about lifting sanctions as well, you know something's up, okay? Syria does not become a minor factor, not something you can overlook or forget about when two significant players in the region are working together on what they're going to do about Syria. Okay, that said, let's start first of all with Trump making a big deal out of wanting to get rid of the sanctions. Would have been around, what, 40 years? That's big. That is big to get rid of those sanctions. Good. However, not 1 week later, what happens? Rubio issues a statement giving us a warning, saying that, Syria could collapse in a few weeks. I didn't know this. Did you know this? That this interim president only controls 30% of Syria? 30%. What about the other 70%? He's got a mess. What's the other thing we didn't know? We were under the impression that American troops were getting out of Syria. Newsflash. We have 14 bases. There are 14 American bases in Syria. I don't think we're going anywhere anytime soon, okay? Meantime, you had Israel, as soon as this all took place, working its way up north because they wanted to stake out an area to where they really wanted to protect the Golan Heights and further in, right? Then you had the Druze asking for protection from these creeps who had taken over, right? The Israelis were supposed to work with the Druze to some extent. The Alewites, and they've been assaulted as well. So while these nasty things have been going on, some people criticize Trump for being a little too permissive, perhaps, a little too tolerant. So all of that said, we have to come away with a very disturbing realization. This country that they call Syria is in a lot more fragile shape than we thought, okay? So what is Russia going to do? Good question. You know, Shara has made it very clear that he is anti-Iran, which we say good. But in the meantime, you have all these other players who apparently have more influence and power on the ground than we realize. So right now, all I can do is say I'm worried about Syria. But the fact of the matter is, per the magic key metaphor, if we can get control on Syria, that is going to be the critical linchpin for the rest of the Mideast. That is my contention. Right. All right, so I've made my point on that. Let's talk about Ukraine, Russia for a second, maybe. Okay. All right, so you had Putin and Trump both talking about the conversation they had afterwards, and both putting a positive spin on it, and that's good. They know that's what they want to do. They want to think they're moving closer to something. I need to offer a number of perspectives here, and maybe Wilma will want to chime in on this. Let me start with this one first. I maintain, so this is just my opinion, I'm editorializing, okay, is that it is Russia, as it currently functions right now, will be worse off, that's my phrase, worse off with any peace deal, okay? Because they won't be in a position to pursue the things that they want to pursue. The point has been made, by the way, and I think it was Lavrov who said it and others, that it is not unusual for nations at war to negotiate while the war continues. rather than say ceasefire and negotiate. Well, you can say, of course, but I'm still trying to figure out, the significance of this. And that's another point. A ceasefire, I'm going to say it. Sorry, Vlad. A ceasefire is not in Russia's interest. Okay? Your negotiating posture will become weakened if the shooting and fighting stops. All right? And I think you know that. So I just wanted to share that opinion with the rest of the world. So what we have here is this think, talk, think circle. They're going round and round, and we're just watching and hoping that they'll resolve their differences with each other. I really think Russia is being the bad actor in this drama, but I just gave you the reasons why, okay? So I'm not sure what the answer is. The point has been made before that Russia wants Ukraine to be either politically neutered, not neutral, neutered, or they want the government to be pro-Moscow, okay? In addition, they want the military to be very weak, okay, to remove any threats that they may feel. And I would say that in the eyes of some, none of those conditions are acceptable, all right? So this process, it's going to go on. And you know what? One other point I just wanted to make is that President Trump has had to go through his own evolution, right? We've had Vance come out and say, well, if this keeps up, we're just going to walk away. They're on their own. We're just going to wash our hands of it. Okay, you can see that as a bit of posturing on America's part. President Trump he thinks he sees the answer. So I think that produces perhaps a little bit of impatience in him. Because to him it's obvious, do this and everything will be fine. Well, they're not ready to do that. They're not ready. So time has to pass, especially in Russia's part, where they begin to consider, weigh, accept what's being asked of them as far as what they're going to do in the future is concerned. I mean, that said, I might as well say it, I think what President Trump sees for Russia is visionary, and it's even more visionary than what Putin sees for his own country. But they've got to own the idea themselves, and they're not ready for it, in part because he's looking at it as a person as a businessman and looking at the nation in terms of its economy, and Putin is looking at it politically, and thinking economically is not one of Putin's strengths, and it may be not one of the strengths of all the people who make up the Russian government. So that might be another discussion. All right, so we got that out of the way for now. Meantime, good old Joe Biden. It's called the rumbling beneath our feet, okay? So all this talk now where Jake Tapper's getting the heat and all these other characters because they were downplaying and hiding Biden's cognitive decline one way or another for 4 years, if not more. Yeah, could it blow up? I sure hope it blows up. I sure hope that every one of these people are brought down in one way or another, because what did they do, ladies and gentlemen? They lied. They lied to you. They lied to everybody in this room, including Carol over there to get a little catnap. And was it right? Of course not. Should there something be done about it? I think so. I think a lot of the American people think something should be done about this. It's inconceivable. But let me just jump to one key part of that. One of the articles I found was about, that's right, Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Edith, was it Edith, I think? Edith Wilson. Yeah, Wilson. Woodrow Wilson's wife, right? Remember? Good old Woodrow had a stroke in office and she hid it from the public along with the staff. Everything that's going on with Biden is a replay of what happened with Woodrow Wilson for a year and a half in his office, when he was serving in office. Sorry?
Maybe FDR too.
Well, we just know that he hid his polio, but this is a case of where he was mentally mentally incompetent. He had a stroke. He couldn't do anything. And there is the wife doing her part, okay? And Jill Biden follows in the footsteps of Edith Wilson. So we have a dilemma here, ladies and gentlemen, if we're going to look at this in terms of legalities. All right, I started out by suggesting that people like Jake Tapper, well, maybe just might need to go to jail. Maybe the major media, for doing this kind of cover-up, need to lose their FCC licenses. Just a thought, okay? So in the meantime, we got Jill imitating Edith Wilson. So did Jill break the law somehow? Or is there some other measure by which we look at her actions and decide, well, she's not guilty? Hard to say. Anyway, just one other quick thing before I'm sorry, I forgot about this. Would anybody out there think for a moment that Israel and Syria would be holding direct talks with each other? I think you would think not. All right, well, during last week, the point was made as part of the dropping the sanctions is that Syria, whatever conditions it's in, should join the Abraham Accords, along with Israel. Now, since the interim president was associated with ISIS, I'm thinking he's not really excited about that idea. But let me lay one out for you. If it's going to become about his self-preservation, if it's about him making sure that his country continues, yep, you're going to see Syria very quickly work on becoming a part of the Abraham Accords. Just a prediction. Just wanted to put that out there. Okay, meantime, we shouldn't be surprised. What? Sorry?
Very suitable occupation for an ex-ISIS guy.
Yeah, well, it's called give it a few days. This is just it. And we're going to hear other things in a couple days to completely change our thinking on this. So I don't know. Everything I say is provisional. I'm sorry. All right, Kiev seeks deeper defense ties with Raytheon. All right, so I'm not, let me go back a little bit because this sets the context here. Will brought up a very good point, and it's true because guess what? Britain admitted it. So here's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just start with 2014, okay? From 2014, we see this heating up of the relationship between Russia and Ukraine, okay? They took Crimea, and now and then they were trying to send special forces in to stir up trouble in the eastern region of Ukraine near Crimea. Well, guess who else was on the ground at the time? That's right, the SAS, British forces. What were they doing there? I don't know. But they were there in partnership with, oh, that's right, the CIA. Remember the 12 facilities that are spread throughout? So I don't know when the CIA showed up exactly.
Who was handing out cookies?
Who was handing out what?
Cookies.
Cookies?
Yeah.
Who?
Our good old...
Not Boris.
Huh?
Not Boris.
No, the American woman.
Handing out cookies.
Handing out cookies while they were killing people.
Yeah. All right, sounds like a mess to me. All right, so let's move on. Okay, the fact that he wants to work directly with Raytheon is kind of so it's kind of a to the American government, and who knows where this is going to go, but it raises the question, what other defense manufacturers is he going to try and work with directly? But wait a second, who's it with? Where's he going to get the money? He's not getting the money anymore, but he's going to work with these guys? Clearly there's something wrong with that picture. All right. So this article asked, did they hide Joe Biden's diagnosis from him? Again, I'm opinionating myself. It's an editorial moment. My editorial says, no, they did not. My editorial says Joe Biden knew exactly what his health was. He was receiving the treatments. They were doing everything they needed to do because, ladies and gentlemen, all this other singing and dancing that we've seen over the last couple days, the Gleason score of 9, advanced. Metastatic. It's in his bones. You got to be kidding me. Look, we knew. I think the person who I think gave the most honest accounting was with Joe Scarborough. Was that Ezekiel Emanuel? I think it was a doctor. And yeah, no, he made it very clear from his perspective, and other doctors have said the same thing. We knew this all along. Okay, it's been known for a long time. Okay, so once we establish as a baseline that we've known all along, what happens next? Okay, who else is going to be tried and prosecuted for fraud? We wait to find out. And all right, so I just want to make one other quick point about the auto pen. I apologize for kind of jumping all over the place here, but the talk right now, as we begin to take a closer look, is that there's a handful of staffers who are around Biden who are responsible, and there might have been one in particular, who every time an executive order showed up or some legislation, he would use the auto pen to sign it, and Joe Biden was none the wiser. All right, so that part will have to be established, but I want to introduce another part here that will come up eventually, I am very certain. Okay, are you telling me that some staffer, okay, with no managerial experience, with no standing in the federal bureaucracy, with no experience to speak of in the government, would just go ahead and do something like this? The answer is no. He would have gotten a phone call. And who would have been on the other end of that phone line? I've got one for you. Obama. All right? Think about that possibility. It has been discussed that Obama treated this like his third term. And so it would have been Obama who was directing the staffers. All right? That hasn't been discussed yet, but wait for it. All right? Just saying. So there's that. We talked about the ghost of Edith. James Comey. You know, I would like to take that interview, I think it was on MSNBC, that he had, the most pathetic display of somebody who is getting worse and worse at lying, okay? Oh, my wife was me. We went out to prepare for the book release. You take a walk on the beach to prepare for a book release? Do you even think for a minute that makes any sense? No, Mr. Comey, you're full of crap. Absolutely full of crap. Anybody who's paying attention, you're not fooling us, all right? And so there was the suggestion that full-scale investigation may be unleashed on you and your others. Look, I just want to remind you, people who studied this and the surveillance techniques that you and your lackeys used was always about chain of association. One was you say, okay, this is the person of interest. He has a phone call. Who did he talk to? All right, we want to know about that person, that person, that person. Then they said, no, wait a second, that's not good enough. Now we're going to go out to the first, now we're going to go at the sec ring. So whoever he talked to, who did that person talk to out there, all right? Now the investigation begins to get interesting. It gets to be interesting. So that's the investigation I'm looking for, because I'm sorry, as Tyrus had suggested on Gutfeld the other night, that 8647 picture could just have as easily been a bat signal to all the terrorist cells out there that it was time to take action. So it is with all due concern and immediate action that Mr. Comey, his associates, and everything around us must be investigated. And that includes you, you fat turd, Brennan. No, I don't like you. Meantime, Ed Martin. We're thrilled by anybody who's heard an interview with Ed Martin. We feel good. He's the real deal. We can count on him to do some things. But what is concerning is when he talks about weaponizing this position that he has in the Department of Justice, now he talks about the fact that, well, we may not be able to charge them with any crimes, but we can shame them. No, that's not your job. That's not good enough, all right? And it's disturbing to have a guy like this who could be such a pit bull to say, we're just going to throw spitballs at them. Ugh. Also, let me just throw out the names, okay? Michael Collins, that was it? I think so, Michael Collins, and then Maria Langen-Rieckhoff, two so-called top analysts who were on the National Intelligence Council who Tulsi Gabbard bagged because they were so anti-Trump. So there you had that jerk, that fat turd, Brennan, carrying on about, this is horrible, it sends a terrible message. You're going to be causing all these talented people to leave because you're doing this. You know, if you're anti-Trump, I'm sorry. I don't think there's much talent there, just saying. Meantime, the article I grabbed, which simply talked about the wars and rumors of wars, 4 major points of conflict. So I just want to remind you, Israel and Hamas. And by the way, there was an interesting clip where Marco Rubio made it very clear that he is 100% behind Israel in order to absolutely obliterate and eliminate Hamas, all right? So if you have any question or confusion, that would be the official U.S. policy. We may be looking at something that's horrible. There are a lot of innocent victims, but it's Hamas who is to blame. It is Hamas who brought this on everybody. Anyway, Israel versus Yemen, that could be a problem. And Iran is still an open question. Then Russia and NATO. I would leave out India and Pakistan, I'm just saying, okay? So the other hot issue I just wanted to throw out here, I just got 2 more here. Oh, this is good. You gotta stay for this one. This is too good. Okay, we got 3 things here that are of concern. First is that, you know, we still have birthright citizenship in America. Big mistake. It's being listened to right now. When you have the following, that should tell you all you need to know about the fact that birthright citizenship needs to go. The communist Chinese have set up, hold on to your hat, maternity houses. That's right, pregnant Chinese women, loyal to the Communist Party, come to America to have a child who's then therefore an American citizen, and then taken back to be raised in China to be a good, loyal communist. Yeah, that's messed up. That is messed up. Okay. Oh, I just want to throw this in. The lesson the mainstream media will never learn. Narratives made of sand slip into the sea eventually. Thank you, Jimi Hendrix. Yes, I just wanted to share that. All right, get ready for this one. This is hilarious. Artificial intelligence picks white names over black in 85% of hiring scenarios. So again, you have people screaming about some kind of racial bias that must be created by the algorithms that go into AI. Ladies and gentlemen, I need to remind you of something very important, and you need to listen carefully. Again, this term, AI, it is a misnomer. The correct term is neural network, all right? Just to repeat myself again.
Much better.
Just to repeat myself all over again, artificial intelligence is about logical programming. You build it up, you can break it down, you can reverse engineer it, all right? Neural networks, you cannot do that. Neural networks, is another way to put it, are optimizing engines, okay? You have this constant cycling of numerical computations. There are no logic statements. There are no go-to statements. There are none of the things you'd see in a programming language that go into what a neural network does. Okay, so it's a purely mathematical process. The issue is going to be how you emphasize what they call certain weights, all right? So you have one entry corresponding with education level. You can have another one corresponding to whether you own a car or not. The other two, if you have what your credit rating is, okay? So you have all these things, you run them through, and they optimize and converge on a value, and oh my goodness, look at that. 85% of the time they happen to pick somebody that's white. All right, so now you have to go back and decide, well, what are we going to do about those initial weights and categories that we created, all right? So I'm not so sure that AI is being biased or neural networks are being biased. It is a numerical problem, and so you get to go back and work on it. But this is just one more example of what they're calling AI is not ready for prime time. It is not. Oh, and speaking of not ready for prime time, look, they've done this before, by the way. Let me just tell you, in the early days of biotechnology, when the Chinese were getting interesting, they set up fake, what was it, fake recruiting firms, all right? They would say, we're recruiting, we're looking for biotech executives, give us your information. Well, as soon as that information was given to them, off it went to Beijing. Now, guess what? All these fired federal workers are trying to figure out where to go. Well, if you happen to go to Smiao Intelligence, Do Strategy, River Merge Strategies, Subasa Insight, or WaveMax Innov, you have gone to a Chinese, communist Chinese website that is soliciting your information and promising a phony consulting gig. All right? So here, let me just put this up just to emphasize my point. Thanks. All right? So I think that gives you the idea. And on that happy note, I'll see you next week.